My name is Chris David with the CIT 336 class. This week we went over quite a bit of new things with client-side and server-side validations, and we also incorporated a new PHP file to act as like our main function file. So you'll see some of the functions that we implemented in there for this week's enhancement. To get started though, I'll show you what we have. On all of our index pages, we did make a quick update. And the update is to call this function to build navigation. So as you can see, we used to have the build nav in here. We've moved this block of code over to the function file down here to allow us to have this create nav elements all in one spot, so we can update it one place, and also now all of our index pages will be a little more efficient, so we don't have to have those blocks of code everywhere. So with that said, you'll see on our home page we do have this navigation. It still works. Still works. These are the pages we haven't set up yet. But if we go over to the other pages controlled by the login registration controller, you'll see that it still works in here, which is great. And then we'll get into our products controller here in a minute and the views for that. But yeah, so that's good news there. Something we did add this week was the client validation for the login and registration in the activity part of our assignment. And then the actual enhancement covered more validation setup for the product, add new product, and add new category pages, views. So because of the practice and the activities, we're able to go ahead and do a little bit more advanced things in the enhancement. So I'll go ahead and hit just log in here, and you'll see that we got the client side validation there, and then we also have the server side. So what I did is I turned off the client validation capabilities, and that's what we get there. And the same thing occurs over here with our registration. So it's kind of neat that we have now two ways to validate, two layers, just in case a browser isn't using any client-side capabilities or the user turns it off. So let's jump over to our products page, our product views, I should say. As you can see, the nav bar still works. I just open up our add category, and then I also want to open up our product just so you can see how everything is valid. So we have valid CSS here for all of our pages in one file. And then we got our valid HTML. Let's check the last page for that valid HTML. There we go. It's all set there. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and test out the client side. The validation there. And we just turned it off. We'll go ahead and do it again. There we are. So I'm going to go ahead and do test for our category name today. So if we go ahead and add that, and now we got our test up here in our navigation bar. Now because it's dynamically set up to update on the navigation bar and the drop-down menu here, we can actually see and use it if we want. And we'll do just test for the product as well. Do nonsense in here. Now these product image path and path to thumbnail, I actually set it up. So literally in the validation, makes you put in an actual path. So we'll just go ahead and use those. And then our product price is up to 10 digits in front of the decimal and then 2 after. And that's to actually match what we have going on in our inventory table in the database. So if we go to the structure, you'll be able to see that our decimal here got 10.2 for the price. Wanted to try to use the most accurate validation for what we needed for the database. So if we actually go into our functions, I can show you what I ended up doing here. So these, highlighted now, are for our products page. I added pattern validations there. So what happens is it will go ahead and match our variable up with the pattern. So what was entered by the user with what the pattern is. And if it matches, it's valid, it returns an integer, it returns 1. And when it returns 1, it will go ahead and apply that to our if statement right here, making this variable not empty. So it bypasses our error message and then goes into using the variable in our updating of the categories in our database. So it's kind of neat. Go back to our web page here. I want to demonstrate the stickiness of our web page. And so if I actually turn off the client-side validation and I click that, even though we updated the view with our error, you can see that all these elements, all these fields are saved. So we're going to finish up entering in the information here, just so we can go ahead and add this. All the fields empty, or filled, I should say. And then we got congratulations test. It was added successfully. So if we go back in our database, look at our inventory table, we can actually see that we have a test. The test is right there, added directly into our database from what we did. And it's valid. We validated it through our functions, PHP. And try to think if there's anything else I should show you. These were what we applied for the activities this week on the registration page. That was a good example. The biggest thing I had trouble with is actually the format for these patterns. I had a huge error I could not resolve, and so I actually ended up going into each of the variables on this if statement and checking to see what value is in the variables by var dump, and found out that they were returning 0, which was making them empty, triggering this error. But once I figured out the actual format of these errors, not these errors, these patterns that needed to follow to avoid the errors, it was able to go ahead and validate that they had the correct information there and bypass this if statement, allowing it to be updated to our database. So other than that, I actually have the enhancement folder up. Let's take a look at it here. And it looks like we did all that. So I appreciate you sticking around today and going through this validation with me. We're looking forward to Enhancement 6 as we progress further and further. I imagine here shortly we'll have an actual login capability, because even though we got the view up, even if you put in information, it doesn't do anything right now. But we'll get that set up here shortly, and we'll go from there next week. So take care for now.